name is Prism, and welcome back to another video. So today, I'm going to be continuing my review of all the previous Superman films. I started with 1978 Superman the movie, and today I will be continuing with 1987 Superman 4 The Quest for Peace. Now, Superman 4 The Quest for Peace, to give a brief production history, was made by Canon Films. The Salkinds, after the bomb of Superman 3 and the bad reception and the failure of Supergirl and the bad reception, decided to give up the rights to Superman filmmaking to Canon Films. Canon Films, I really do not need to get into. I'll put it this way, they were known for really graphic, over-the-top films that were cheap and just made to make money. They had no narrative purpose. They were literally just films made to make money. And they were over the top, and I will probably never see really any of them. Because they're just all graphic. But the point is that in 1987, or the 1980s in general, Canon wanted to actually have some footing in the Hollywood landscape. They were losing money, they wanted to be a bit more than a laughingstock and just a cheap, low-budget company. And so they went ahead and they made Masters of the Universe and Superman 4. And were set to make a Spider-Man movie, which never happened because Canon Films basically went bankrupt. And in part, it's because of Superman 4 and Masters of the Universe, which are very, very cheap films. They are very bad movies, but specifically today, Superman 4, which, I'm going to be honest, I actually kind of like it. I think Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, narratively and entertainment-wise, is better than Superman 3. And there's a few simple reasons for that. And one of them is not quality. This film has no quality at all. The only thing it has, really, that's good are its actors, and only the ones that we've seen in the previous films. There's other characters in here that are absolutely annoying and just questionable why they're even in here. But Margot Kidder, Christopher Reeve, and Gene Hackman still do a great job with their roles. Even if they're not as good as they were in the other films, you can still tell that they cared. Especially Christopher Reeve, who very clearly cared about the message of the film, on it being on nuclear war and the Cold War at the time period. They're the same thing, but you get the point. He really wanted to tell a story that tackled the themes of the Cold War. And I think it's really unique when a comic book film tries to take a real issue and put it into a comic book landscape. X-Men have been used for representation and the two sides of violence over heroism and just trying to show people a better future. And Spider-Man, you know, all these different characters, I think it's interesting when they try to do a story that has more meaning than just, it's a hero fighting aliens. Those are great too, but I do appreciate that Christopher Reeve wanted to tell something that was a bit more home to the time period and to the current issues of the modern day. And I do think that the nuclear arms story is the best part of Superman 4 in terms of narrative. It's not great. I should also say that they cut down the film by about 45 minutes, but it still has that message in there. They're still trying to tell you something with that, and they're trying to create an entertaining narrative. But as for my three reasons why it's entertaining, I would say the story, the amount of action, and I would say it's a Superman film. Superman 3 was not a Superman movie. It put Superman as a co-star who you could have basically taken out of the picture, and yes, you'd have a lot of gaps in terms of the third act, but honestly, you could probably turn it into a comedy sketch if you really worked hard enough with editing, because Superman 3 is just plain out bad and not Superman. But like I said, Superman 4 tried to get back to that. It tried to bring in Gene Hackman and all these actors from the other films. It tried to bring things back to the basics of what made the first two films great. But obviously, it had no budget. It shows. Getting into spoilers now, because I've kind of just torn apart the film for a minute already. I've kind of just given my thoughts. You see, the thing with Superman 4 is hard. While you should be hating it because of how bad it is, I struggle to actually hate the film because I genuinely enjoy quite a bit of it. I think it is a really fun film, but I do want to get into spoilers a bit more. So, as for things I like, starting with spoilers, I like some of the characters and their directions. I like that Superman is hesitant to help with the nuclear arms crisis, that he initially does not want to intercede because he does not think it's his place, and that he only intercedes when he feels like it's actually hurting society to not benefit the cause. He is concerned that the world will annihilate himself, or itself, rather, and so he wants to try and prevent it from becoming another Krypton. But I think the reasons for why he shouldn't do it are never really fully asked. I guess because other buyers and corrupt organizations will still create nuclear weapons, but it's never really fully discussed why he shouldn't interfere, apart from it is not his job. I don't fully get it. I don't fully get that side of the story. I also don't fully get the idea of Nuclear Man, which has some fight scenes, and things happen after those fight scenes. You know, you get the great scene with Lois Lane and Clark in his apartment where he's feeling very unwell after his Nuclear Man fight and getting the big scratch. But also, like, why is Nuclear Man in here? Like, really, why? What's the purpose? I guess Lex Luthor wanted to make a villain to destroy Superman. But what's the point if that villain is pointless? What is Nuclear Man's whole deal? He's just a killer. He's just Superman but evil. They basically created a villain for the whole purpose of, hey, we need an adversary for Superman to actually fight. He doesn't really tie into the plot at all. He's just kind of there. And yeah, they cut a lot of footage, but the footage that they do have, the deleted scenes that have been released, they don't add to Nuclear Man, really. They don't add to Superman's plot when it comes to Nuclear Man. They just kind of are there. But what I will criticize, actually, in terms of cutting scenes, is the scene with Jeremy and Superman, where Superman actually comes to the classroom and tells him why he won't interfere in the conflict. I want to ask, why on earth did you cut that scene? Why? I get you want to cut the film down for runtime, but there are other scenes you could have cut out, and you cut down a scene that was the core purpose to the narrative, though of course, as other people have said, Canon Films didn't care. They just wanted to ship this out the door and be done with it. And I'm sorry, but that doesn't generate box office. Sometimes you get a fluke and it does, but in this case, it did not. People could tell the quality difference. But like I said, you know, getting back to the spoiler section, I do think there are good moments in here. I do love the scene, or at least like the scene of Lacey and Lois being in the same apartment, and Superman having to switch both personas from Superman to Clark Kent and back and forth. I do think it's a really fun scene, and as it is the last time we get to see Christopher Reeve in a Superman film, I think it's really fun that they put this scene back in there, because it really just shows his ability to switch from the two personas so quickly. Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. I think Superman 4 is really bad. I could say a lot more about it. I think there's some really good stuff in here. I think some of its themes are interesting. I don't like Lacey Warfield as a character, or Lex Luthor's new sidekick. I don't think the plot about, you know, lies for profits over journalism really goes anywhere. I think what they were trying to do was create a story where Clark Kent was concerned about the direction society was heading, but they only really gave attention to the nuclear part of that, and the whole idea of, like, oh, you know, he doesn't want to sell the farm, and blah blah blah. Like, that really does not matter. That really does not matter at all. You could cut those scenes and you would still have a pretty, you know, average film. You'd still have a bad film, but you could try and cut those scenes, or at least, you know, cut down the runtime of them, and it would still basically be the same movie, because those scenes don't really mean anything. It's only the nuclear stuff that really has any purpose. Though, if I had to give Superman 3, or 4, sorry, The Quest for Peace, a rating, I'd give it 3.5 out of 5. I did really enjoy it. I do think there are some fun fight scenes in here, but I just really don't think it's a good movie. And I do think that they could have done way better for another installment in Superman. I feel bad for Christopher Reeve that he thought this was going to be a bigger effort, and that by the time he found out it was just going to be another trash film, he couldn't get out of it because of contract and everything. But, you know, it's ironic that it's called The Quest for Peace because it put the franchise to rest for over a decade. So, anyways, that's my thoughts for Superman 4. I hope you all enjoyed. I enjoyed making this video, and I will see you all with my next review coming very shortly for Superman Returns in 2006. Bye, guys!